right, folks, welcome in. It is another brand new edition of the 901 Soccer Podcast, and I'm your host, Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can search Bluff City Media on Twitter. We're part of Bluff City Media, so that's where you should find us. Just search Bluff City Media at Bluff City _media. Excuse me. My brain's a little bit frazzled right now. It's been a long day. It's real late, so I'm just a tad tired, but I continue to be here for you, the people. So, like I said, at LDoc93 on Twitter, at 901 Soccer Pod on Twitter, and at Bluff City _media on Twitter. Search us on Facebook as well. Just search 901 Soccer and search Bluff City Media. We should pop right up both times. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe. And if you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening wherever, you should definitely watch on YouTube and like, comment, and subscribe. So, what we have in store for you this evening. 901 FC gets a 1-1 draw with the visiting Colorado Springs Switchbacks. We'll talk about a little bit about that game. Kind of a forgettable game, really. There's not a whole lot to go into, but what there is to go into, we will discuss. Attendance was up for the second straight game. We'll talk about that. The coaching clinic that 901 FC put on today, I was unable to attend the part during the day, but I was able to be in the room when Coach Glass addressed the coaches and asked for feedback and gave them feedback following the game. That was very interesting. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, it is the summer of soccer, and the U.S. men's national team, if you can see I'm wearing my U.S. jersey because it was, a big game today, and they absolutely messed all over themselves. And so we will definitely talk about that. I might be tired, but I think by the time I get done with that, I'll be all riled up and fired up and pissed off. And so if you're one of those people out there that likes to tune in to see me hoot and holler and yell and scream, this is your lucky day because you're probably going to get it. I do feel sorry for my fiance asleep in the next room, but I'll do what I can. But you guys, when I start to think about Greg Berhalter and I hear or see his name, and especially when I hear him speak, I turn into the Hulk. It's not an affliction that I would wish upon any of you, though I'm sure many of you have the same affliction that I do. But that's where we're at there. So we'll get to that. So, like I said, 901 FC gets a 1-1 draw against the Colorado Springs Switchbacks tonight. Actually, fun little side note here. At the last 901 FC home game against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, somebody, I want to say it was John Varlos, but I don't remember for sure. But somebody asked, what exactly is a switchback? And the only way that I was able to place that word is when I was a kid, we went to Zion National Park out in Utah, and there is one of the hiking trails out there is called Angel's Landing. And on that, there are several different series of switchbacks. And what I mean when I say switchbacks, it's like a walking trail. So you're walking, and then you get to where it stops, and it loops and goes back the other way, and so on and so forth. And then you get to another point called Walter's Wiggles, where I think it's called Walter's Wiggles, where you're going uphill, or if you're done, you're coming downhill, and it's real quick, little bing, 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 bing. It's almost like a pinball machine. That's the only thing I've ever known, the only time I've ever heard the term switchbacks prior to seeing the soccer team in Colorado Springs. So somebody else out there knows what a different version of that is, I'd be all ears. Somebody thought that it might have been referring to some sort of snake, and I wonder if maybe they mixed up or mashed together Diamondback and Sidewinder. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. That's just something I have had trouble in these first 5 minutes of the show tonight, stringing together the words Colorado Springs Switchbacks. And so I just thought it might be fun to take a little bit of a detour and see, if anybody knew what a switchback was other than a back and forth on a walking trail. But anyway, 901 FC gets the draw tonight. So this is one where if you're inclined to be a homer for the team, this is a game where you could probably find something that you liked. If you're someone that's inclined to just dump all over the team and nitpick and find everything wrong, I think there's probably something here for you tonight too. I have been lumped into both categories. There, I'm sure, have been times where that both of those have been true. Tonight, I think a draw was a pretty fair result, and I say that because now I want to see they gave up an early goal off a corner kick, off a set piece. Coach Glass said after the game that Marlon Santos was very upset with himself. He says that one's on him. I'm not sure. It was a fairly wide open header, if I'm not mistaken. So if somebody is willing to be upset with themselves and take ownership of it, I think that speaks volumes about the content of the character of the guys in the locker room. And that was a theme all off season and through the early part of this season was, they want high quality guys that are going to fight and scrap and claw and hold each other accountable and that want to be here. And if Marlon is holding himself accountable, there's not a whole lot much more you can ask of him other than to maybe don't give up the goal, but it's soccer, goals are going to happen. It's not the end of the world. You still got a point out of the game. So if you want to be upset, you can look at bad goal to give up, a lot of chances that you didn't convert. If you want to be on the more positive side, you can look at it as, yes, they gave up an early goal. They didn't throw in the towel. They didn't collapse. They kept going. They responded very well, got a goal back, tied it up, and then had a lot of chances, both right at the end of the first half and then at various points throughout the second half where they could have taken the lead. Coach Glass said he thought maybe they probably should have been up 2-1 going into the locker room. And I don't think that I disagree with him on that, because that was one where it's kind of there's a lot of people out there, for better or worse, that really dislike Alexi Lalas. And one of his sayings that I've always found odd, because it's like, duh, he says goals change games. Well, yeah, no shit. Goals change games. It's like the whole point is to score goals. So of course, when you score goals, it is going to change games. I don't think there's any other sport in the world where you will hear analysts say, oh, it's like scoring touchdowns changes games. You don't say hitting 3-pointers changes game. Really? But I, for a minute there, thought that Luis Fernando got the goal. It was a good work down the right-hand side. Memphis looked really good going down the right-hand side, and I want to give a special shout-out to Carson Vom Steeg. He was good in the air, and he looked really good going forward. He made a couple of runs, passed a couple of people with the ball, had some really good crosses into dangerous areas. So want to make sure that we didn't get out of here tonight without giving Carson Vom Steeg his flowers. But Luis Fernando got the goal, and you felt like, or at least I felt like, in that moment that I was like, okay, well, the switch has been flipped. I don't know that it's going to be smooth sailing, but it feels like it might almost end up being one-way traffic at this point. And for the rest of that first half, it was one-way traffic. You got the sense that Colorado Springs was just absolutely desperate for that halftime whistle. And maybe that halftime whistle has ended up saving them a point, because look, here's another thing. Colorado Springs was the hottest team in the league coming into this game. I know prior to last week, 901 FC was the hottest team in the league, or you could have made the case for them to be the hottest team in the league. But, they lost to San Antonio. But Colorado Springs came to this game 5 straight wins. They got off to a horrendous start, which is why after 5 straight wins, they're in that tie for 7th and 8th place. But, they were playing really well. And this is another one. This is one of those games where you can see what you want to see, if that makes sense. You can be glass half full, glass half empty. There could be no glass at all. There could be lots of glasses. As a matter of fact, there is a glass, and he's on the sideline. Ha ha. That was a play on words. But at the end of the day, I think a draw is a fair result. Neither team did anything just spectacularly, and neither team did anything just totally poorly, I don't think. Draw, I think, is a fair result. Good response after giving up an early goal. Colorado Springs keeper made a number of really, really good saves. It helps that he's something absurd like 6'8", or I might just be slightly talking out of my ass there, but he's a big fellow, big guy. And he made every centimeter Every inch, he made it count. Because there were a couple of times, and another guy that I want to give a little bit of a special shout out to is Zach Duncan tonight. He was almost like a man on a mission. He was almost like an artillery gunner finding the range, like an old Civil War artillery gunner, where oh, that one's too long, let's correct, drop it down. Oh, that one's too short, bring it back up, let's correct. And he was just finding the range, and it just felt like it was going to be a matter of time. Just over the bar, right to the keeper. Just a little bit this way, just a little bit that way, and it just felt like it's like eventually one of them's going to find that corner, and it didn't end up happening. And I don't think that Zach Duncan once every so often has a game where you just feel like he's about to get a goal, and it just hasn't happened yet, and that's kind of a bummer. But I feel like probably Duncan, more than just about any other 901 SC player, is going to feel just a little bit frustrated that they happened to run into a goalkeeper who was on one tonight. But all in all, ultimately, I think it was a very forgettable game. I had one or two people ask me the Lucas Turchi yellow card. So in the first half, you had I think it was Tejada for Colorado, was cautioned and shown a yellow card for delaying the restart of play. Essentially, the ball went out of bounds. He didn't like that it was a Memphis throw, and he booted the ball 15 rows into the stands. That's easy. Not too terribly much later in the half, maybe 10 minutes, a similar situation happened, but different in the fact that I don't think Lucas Turchi meant to do this, but I understand why the card came out. It's one where Turchi's going to get the ball. It goes out, and he's trying to slow down and stop himself before he goes crashing through the little advertising board. And the ball's right there, and he kicks it, I guess maybe to try and stop himself. I don't know if it hit the board or not, but maybe he was just trying to flip it up over his head. But it, too, went way high, way up into the stands. And that's one, especially if you've already given the one card to the other team for this, it's one where if you are not completely focused and paying attention to that as it is happening, if you just see it out of the corner of your eye, or maybe you just switched your brain off for 3 seconds and you just zone back in and you're like, ball's way up there, he's by himself, okay, card. Especially with the Colorado Springs players going crazy, very understandably, you just gave us one for this. I don't think Turchi meant to do it, but if you're not 100% focused, dialed in as a referee, that can happen where it's almost like catching the student who retaliates, right? You miss the first one, but you catch the retaliation. Not quite the exact same thing, but that's why I think Turchi got the card, just because it looked so similar to one that he had already given a card for not 10 minutes prior to that. Again, I don't think it probably should have been, because I didn't think he was trying to delay the restart of play, but it looked like it. So I get it. One other thing before we move on, or let's just go ahead and move on. The attendance tonight announced at 3,090. It's the second straight game where the attendance has gone up. You remember the last game was against the Pittsburgh Riverhounds, and that was one where I felt like the attendance that was announced was lower than what was actually in the building. And if I remember correctly, that was I laid out my reasoning why, even though that's what I thought, that's not the case, because nobody is moving 5,000 tickets and only telling you that half that number of people showed up. That's just not how it works. And to suggest otherwise, for people to legitimately suggest otherwise, is asinine. So 3,090, the last game was like 3,020, I think. So up 70. That's not a lot. I understand that, but that's improvement. That's 2 games of improvement. So we're trending in the right direction. I don't know that next Wednesday's game against Rhode Island is gonna follow that trend, obviously, because it's a Wednesday night. But I'm not going to complain if it does, and I will understand if it doesn't. But I think it is. I can't quite yet get to proof positive just yet that everything that they're doing is working. But I think it is a very good indicator that the effort and the energy and the time that they the organization that I don't want to see as an organization has, all the stuff that they've been doing, the open practice, the coaches clinic, which we'll get to in a second, the going to the schools, the little bit more coverage from the local media like 24, channel 24, channel 3, La Prensa Latina. I think it's starting. It's as Gandalf said in Lord of the Rings, it said the coming of Merry and Pippin to Fangorn will be like the falling of small stones that starts an avalanche. So you got to start somewhere, right? And it might just be a growth of 70 people from one game to the next game, but that's growth nonetheless. And I don't think we have any reason to turn our nose up at it or doubt it or whatever qualifier you want to put on it. But I think we're starting to see that. And then, we've got I dropped my pen, excuse me. We're starting to get into the summer of soccer. The U.S. played today, and we'll get to that disaster class in a minute. Mexico has already played 3 games here in the U.S. before Copa America. They played at Kyle Field, the home of the Texas A&M college football, the ever-living compound complex fighting Texas Aggie football team. Happy birthday, Kip. And they got 85,000 people there for it. Mexico, Brazil, that's a blockbuster. That's a blockbuster friendly. The U.S. gets to play Brazil. We'll talk about that in a minute. But, with the summer of soccer really starting to get going, and don't forget, a week from yesterday, today being Saturday, a week from yesterday, Euro 2024 starts in Germany, and then several days later, Copa America starts here in the U.S. So with the effort and energy put into trying to get more people to come to games by 901 FC, combined with the summer of soccer really starting to get rolling now, I think we're about to see a number of bigger and better crowds at 901 FC games. Now, 901 FC now is in a stretch. They've got 3 home games in 8 days. And, you had a similar situation last year, right around the same time, and it didn't really net a whole lot. Hopefully there's local media in town that's not focused on trying to get a baseball team to go to Mexico City or London. Why there are Memphis media outlets concerned about a city that's not Memphis getting a team that doesn't have getting a team in a league that Memphis has nothing to do with is a topic of discussion I don't understand. But, whatever. 3 home games in 8 days. So the next one is Wednesday, June the 12th at 7 p.m. against expansion side Rhode Island FC. And then it's still saying on the game notes here, it says Friday, but the coaches and the players and the website say Saturday. That's something that's going to have to be fixed. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're the only people that ever get this, and I'm telling you that it's not correct. It's Saturday. It's not Friday. It says Friday, June 15th, and I'm pretty sure Saturday is June the 15th. So whatever. Anyway, Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday. We just had the first Saturday. We have Wednesday and Saturday. And then you have a June 28th. That is a Friday. That's the day after the U.S.-Panama game in Atlanta at Copa America. That's the Phoenix Rising at 7:30 on Friday, June the 28th. And then you have July the 27th and August the 3rd are your next 2 home games after that. Those might be the ones where we really see the fruits of the summer of soccer, because by that point you will have wrapped up Copa America and the Euros, and the Olympics will be starting. And you'll have all the European teams coming over. So it's going to be a lot of soccer. And I think 901 FC is in a good spot to be able to try to ride that wave. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and we'll deal with it at that time. One of the things that is an indicator of the effort and energy that this team is putting in is the coaching clinic, right? So this is the 3rd straight year they've done the coaching clinic. This year, they brought in the youth director from Sporting Lisbon in Portugal, who got to do the guitar smash tonight. The coaching clinic went very well. I was told that over 50 local youth coaches, high school, club, whatever, attended, which is up from about 30, I think is what they told me that they had last year. And that follows the trend of the open practice was bigger and better this year than it was last year. So you have the open practice, which leads to a bigger attendance. Open practice up from last year. Game right after that is up. Then you have coaching clinic, which is bigger than last year, and attendance is up again. I think they're doing the right things. Unfortunately, I was not able to make it out to the morning and late morning, early afternoon sessions of the coaching clinic. There was a 3v3 tournament at Micros that I was refereeing. But after the game, I was able to listen to Stephen Glass and Caleb Patterson-Sewell talk to the coaches, and it was really neat. I'll be honest. It was really neat to kind of get like a peek behind the curtain, so to speak, at kind of some of the thought process. Not so much like tactical discussion, like, well, I mean, there was that, to be sure, and I got a little bit lost. I'll be honest. I'm sure you have noticed by this point that tactics and formations and whatnot are not a real big part of this show. It's because it's a little bit above my pay grade. It's a little bit beyond my mental capacity. And I feel like if I started to talk it, and I wouldn't be able to even pretend to sound like I knew what I was talking about, and would be found out as a fraud in that regard. So I just kind of steer clear from it. And I'm now just admitting to you that I'm kind of clueless on tactics. So when they got into that a little bit, I don't think they got too deep into the minutia of it, but I don't know that for certain because it's not really my wheelhouse. So that was definitely a part of what they were talking about, but there were a lot of bigger picture questions, some of which Caleb Patterson-Sewell discussed some of the stuff that drives him crazy at the youth level across the whole country. Stephen Glass, one or two things that I really thought was interesting. One was, and I love this mentality, and it probably isn't always going to work, but it's a very good mentality and speaks to what they're trying to build here. And it says, we're not going to change our tactics or change our formation so that we don't lose. We're going to do that to try to win. And what they were getting at there is, you can have you as the opponent, be it Colorado Springs, Pittsburgh, Indy, San Antonio, Sacramento, Louisville, whoever. You can play however you want to play. We're going to play in a way that we feel gives us the best chance at winning. We're not going to play in a way that's just, we have to stop you from doing X, Y, Z. And that might not always be the best way to do it. I don't know, or I don't think necessarily, but I love the mentality of it. That's a winner's mentality. That is, we're going to take our game, and we're going to go try and ram it down your throat, and we're going to make you stop us. It's almost like if you've seen the movie Patton, he's like, nobody ever won a war by dying for their country. He won it by making the other guy die for his country. That's sort of the, we're not going to try to stop you from doing stuff. We're going to make you stop us from doing stuff. And I love that mentality. That is a big sack, big sack, own up. I love it. That is a winner's mentality. And I'm sure there will be times where it comes back to bite them, but I feel like those are probably going to be few and far between. All right, I liked that mentality. That was really interesting. That I really liked to hear from Coach Glass. And then one of the other things was that I thought was really cool is you got to put like the welfare of the players first. Like the players are everything. And some of the stuff that was discussed about, training on certain days, or if everybody's wiped out, maybe we don't train this day, or maybe we'll only do it this way. I found fascinating. And one of the things was, look, you can have the greatest game training plan, right? You can have, we're going to do this drill, we're going to work on this, we're going to work on that, and these guys are going to do this, and these guys are going to go over here and do this, and look, this, that, and the other. And if they're all wiped out and they don't have any legs, then there might not necessarily be any point to it. I found that absolutely fascinating. It was very much a rejection of the my way or the highway type theory that you see a lot of coaches try, most notably Greg Berhalter of the United States men's national team, which we'll get to in a second, which is kind of why I layered it this way, because it's going to segue very nicely. But it was really neat to hear Coach Glass and Caleb Patterson-Sewell and Coach Teixeira from Portugal kind of elaborate on those, and the line of thinking of the players are everything. We sometimes need to tailor what we want to do to what the players need, I thought was fantastic, which brings us so nicely to the United States men's national team losing 5-1 today in front of a almost entirely Colombian crowd in D.C. The worst defeat of Greg Berhalter's tenure. The first time the U.S. has given up 5 goals in a game since 2009, the 2009 Gold Cup final against Mexico at Giant Stadium. And I think prior to that, the last time the U.S. had given up 5 goals in a game was like the late 90s, like 97 or 98, I think is what I saw today. So you go from listening to Stephen Glass talk about, hey, you need open and honest feedback with the players. You know, if the players say, hey, look, I'm out of gas. My legs aren't feeling good today. You know, we're not going to try to essentially push the square peg into the round hole. Contrast that to the garbage I witnessed earlier in the day with, and somebody made a great point on Twitter. I don't remember who it was. I should have had it pulled up in front of me, but I didn't. Especially when you're watching them against a team like Colombia, who's free-flowing and they're out there having fun. Nobody on the U.S. is having fun. There is no flow. They're all thinking, because in the back of their mind, it's like, if I don't do it Greg's way, I don't play. See Giovanni Reyna. Right? We have an incredible amount of talent that we have never seen. And after a day like today, yes, Greg Berhalter is there are no words, there are no curses in the tongues of elves, ents, or men for this treachery. But at some point, you also do need to, the players do need to take ownership of this. They have all alleged repeatedly that they wanted Greg back as well. I have my doubts about that. I think it's either Stockholm Syndrome or those are hostage videos where you've got a gun to your head and you say, no, these guys are great. If you don't want them to shoot and kill you, that's what's going on here. Man, I really want to play for the U.S. in a World Cup in the U.S. But man, if I don't swear fealty to Greg, I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah, we all wanted him back. Greg Berhalter has lost the right to coach soccer for money. He should be thrown in prison for his crimes. That was an atrocity out there today, an absolute war crime, what he perpetrated on the American fans. Few of them that remaining. When Greg Berhalter says he's changing American soccer forever, he means that he is going to be so awful and so unwatchable and force so many square pegs into so many fucking round holes that there is going to be no more interest left in this team. He is changing American soccer forever by wiping the U.S. men's national team from the public consciousness. This team has slid so far into irrelevancy. Turner Sports spent hundreds of millions, perhaps billions of dollars for a decade-plus long deal for U.S. national team rights, and they're getting like they're getting like 250,000 people to watch those games, maybe closer to 3. That's a MAC football game. The U.S. men's national team is as popular as Toledo football. Congratulations, Greg, you sack of shit. Congratulations. U.S. men's national team attendance has not hit 30,000 for a year since 2015. We're coming up, that's almost a decade. When you had it at 30,000 every year from 2007 to 2015. Really glad we didn't run a coaching search again to bring back Greg. Because he has all of those high-level wins over elite South American and European competition, right? Yeah. How'd that work out in Qatar against the Netherlands? Louis van Gaal ran circles around your dumbass and laughed at you in the postgame. The Colombians olayed your ass at home 5-1. What the hell do you think Brazil is going to do to you? They are going to jail sex you. You are going to drop the soap and care so little about yourself that you don't even bother. And then you're going to get into Copa America. Bookmark this. Here is what will happen. You will get an ugly, close win against Bolivia. You will get an ugly, close win against Panama. You will lose comprehensively to Uruguay. And you will be laughed out of the building in the quarterfinals by either Brazil or Colombia. And somehow, some way, U.S. Soccer will spin that as a huge step forward for this group, despite the fact that the two of the last three times the U.S. men's national team has played in the Copa America, they've been to the semifinals. Greg will keep his job. The mainstream American soccer media will lap up all of it. And we will waste the greatest, last, best chance to make soccer explode in this country. We have a 5-year stretch of Copa America, Club World Cup, Olympics. And we are pissing it away for a bald, homeless man. I'll never forget the Saudi Arabia friendly before the World Cup in 2022. I was watching the game on the couch right back there with my dad, and he said, he looks like a drunk with his 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock shadow, his stupid shiny bald head, his annoying fucking shoes. If I hear one more thing about Greg Berhalter's shoes, I'm punching somebody in the face. That's going to happen. So when that happens, I do apologize to whoever happens to be standing there. I don't care about his shoes. He doesn't deserve to wear shoes. He should be making minimum wage working the deep fryer at Zaxby's. Speaking as someone who worked the deep fryer at Zaxby's for a year and a half. He is a war criminal and a terrorist and an overall just bad person who attempted to blackball Giovanni Reyna because Giovanni Reyna's dad shit-canned his kid and then went to an off-the-record leadership conference and bragged about, I almost kicked this kid out of the squad, and then he came groveling back because I'm benevolent, and then it got out, and he's like, oh, well, that was supposed to be off the record. Okay, well, maybe just don't. That's one of those things, right? Coaches love every sport. Oh, what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room. Well, unless you need to pat yourself on the back to a bunch of business people who don't even know who the fuck you are. You irrelevant ass. Terrorist. Right to jail. Right, I'm like the Fred Armisen meme. Right to jail. Right away. It is going to be bad in Orlando, especially after Brazil gave up 2 goals to the rad-ass Mexico team that currently exists. Which, by the way, that's Greg's biggest accomplishment. He beats Mexico. Whoop-de-fucking-do. You know who else beat Mexico? Jurgen Klinsmann. You know who else beat Mexico? Bob Bradley. You know who else beat Mexico? Bruce Arena. You know who else beat Mexico? Dave Sarachan. Okay? Beating Mexico is nothing new. We've been doing it for 25 years. Oh, but he won the nations. Like, cool. Don't care. Show me how you do against somebody that's not a CONCACAF minnow. Oh, wait. You just did. Got absolutely jail-sexed. And they cared so little about it. Greg Berhalter come out there after the game. They disrespected the game of soccer today. Crazy how when things go well, it's I and we. And when things don't go well, it's they. And it all circles back around to my way or the highway, square pegs and round holes. The U.S. players are not allowed to think. They are not allowed to do what they want. They are not allowed to play with any creativity or any brilliance or any inspiration. They are not allowed to have fun. I don't want to hear about the vibes in the team when Sergiño Dest gets a red card and fights 3 of his teammates on the way off the field. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to fucking hear it. If Greg Berhalter is allowed to remain the U.S. coach after the Copa America, it's malfeasance. And not only should he be put in prison, Cindy Parlow-Cohn, Michael Kammerman, J.T. Batson, David Wright, all of them, put them under the jail because they are all complicit in war crimes. This is not acceptable, except that it is. Because it's not about winning and losing. It's not about growing the game. It's about cheaping out so you don't have to hire a real coach so that you can keep your bank account nice and fat. So that when you inevitably get sued again by anybody, that you have money to settle the legal dispute. It was not too long ago that U.S. Soccer was sitting on $100 million cash reserve. It was 8 years ago. It was after the Copa America in 2016. And then they got sued for being scumbags, and now they're down to $10 million. You lost 90% of your value in less than 10 years. Good job, U.S. Soccer. Way to go. That was when they had a Wall Street banker running the federation, I might add. I don't know what else to say. I don't know where we go from here. I mean, I know where we go from here. We're going to get jail sexed by Brazil. We're going to look awful. I mean, this team playing the way Greg Berhalter wants to play, this team couldn't score in a whorehouse. Cool. Tyler Adams hit a 50-yard bomb against Mexico. You waited until the 98th minute to score against Jamaica. You didn't score in Trinidad. You didn't score against Slovenia. You scored 1 goal but gave up 5 against Colombia. You're not going to score on Brazil. You're going to score 1 goal against Bolivia. You're going to score 1 goal against Panama. You're not scoring on Uruguay. And then you're not scoring on Brazil again. Okay. That's how this is going to go. You are going to attempt to spin us a web of lies and deceit and bullshit about how getting bounced in the court, how one of the worst performances in the U.S. men's national team at the Copa America is somehow a step forward. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Ricardo Pepi didn't get to start the day after he comes out and says, no, I want to win this tournament. This is not just about getting experience for the World Cup. I don't think it's a coincidence. Also, just Greg hates Pepi for some reason. I don't understand why. This other line of bullshit that U.S. Soccer's been running out there about, he's a great super sub and not going to the World Cup really motivated him. Shove it up your ass. All right, that's enough of that. I can't do it. It's late, and I was tired and ready to go to bed, and now I'm tired and ready to go to bed, but I'm also very upset. So that's going to do it for us here tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in and listening. I'm your host. I'm Lawrence Dockery. You can find me on Twitter at LDoc93. You can find the 901 Soccer Podcast on Twitter at 901 Soccer Pod. You can find Bluff City Media on Twitter at BluffCity_media. Excuse me. You can find 901 Soccer Podcast on Facebook. Just search 901 Soccer. You can find Bluff City Media on Facebook. Just search Bluff City Media. Like, comment, and subscribe here on YouTube. And hopefully I will be back to talk to you next Wednesday after a 901 FC game against Rhode Island FC. That's also when the U.S. plays Brazil. So you might want to tune in for that because it might get a little bit more fiery because it'll be a little bit earlier in the evening and I won't be so tired. Until then, talk to you then.